In Peru, President Dina Boluarte appointed new ministers after several of her cabinet officials resigned amid corruption investigations against her. The United Nations announced a mission to Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza following the withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces from the facilities. And in Russia, authorities seized over 27 explosive devices while being transported from Ukraine to Russia via EU member states. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, President Dina Boluarte appointed new ministers after several of her cabinet officials resigned amid investigation of alleged corruption against her. The president swore in 6 new ministers on Monday night. Among these are Walter Ortiz Acosta as Minister of the Interior, Ángela Hernández Cajo as the new Minister of Women and Vulnerable Populations, and Morgan Quero Caime as the new head of the Education portfolio. The resignations take place 2 days before the Prime Minister, Gustavo Adrián Sen, is due to appear before Congress, which is why the President accelerated the reconfirmation of the executive. The Peruvian President is facing a preliminary investigation by the Public Prosecutor's Office for alleged illicit enrichment and omission to declare to the detriment of the state. In Chile, leaders and militants held a conversation with Rangel Peña of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela to learn about the details of the electoral process on July 28th. The activity took place in the midst of a media campaign against the electoral process in Venezuela, in which Chilean media seek to misinform local audiences in order to generate opinion matrices. By means of these narratives, for example, they arbitrarily omit data such as the number of candidates registered for the elections. The attendants to the conversation were able to compare the information they received in Chile and to analyze part of the communicational assemblies.
Here in Chile there is no information about the process, only the sounding board of the CNN or the Western channels where it is said that there is a fraud, that a candidate is left out, and all that is being repeated by the media of the empire. The truth is that it is a caricature, or when one listens, reads El Mercurio, La Tercera, watches television channels and even listens to some supposedly progressive or democratic politicians, not to mention those on the right. First, there is an enormous level of misinformation, second, a complete level of lack of knowledge and ignorance, and third, a level of manipulation and intoxication that is done with the worst of intentions.
The large outbreak of syncytial virus and an imminent increase in flu infection led to Chilean health authorities reinstate the mandatory use of masks for a specific group of the population. The sustained increase in respiratory viruses forced the authorities of that country to decree the measure, which will be extended until September of this year. The government started the winter campaign with an immunization campaign that includes vaccines against influenza, COVID-19, and for the first time against the syncytial virus that affects newborns. The vaccination process is free and not compulsory, but a large number of vaccinations are expected after the high number of deaths due to the pandemic. In Argentina, on the 42nd anniversary of the conflict with the United Kingdom, organizations commemorate the National Day of the Veterans and the Fallen in the Malvinas War. The tribute include government protocol acts, groups and centers of former combatants will pay tribute to the participants, questioning at the same time the policies of Javier Milei. Analysts consider that the war conflict was an attempt by the civil military dictatorship to extend its period in power, but ended up accelerating its end and brought serious losses for Argentine families. The country establishes that the recovery of the effective exercise of sovereignty over the Malvinas and the surrounding maritime areas constitute a permanent and unrenounceable objective of the people. The President of Brazil, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, made a series of trips to various regions of the country starting this Tuesday, where he will make announcements on deliveries of works. This Tuesday, the head of state started his tour visiting the city of Rio de Janeiro, where he participates in the inauguration of the Institute of Pure and Applied Mathematics in the municipality of Niterói, as well as in the beginning of the dredging works in the Bay of Guanabara. Among other activities, on Thursday, Lula will visit the city of Guyana, where he will participate in the inauguration of the Hemo 8R medicine factory. The president affirmed that he has no intention of abandoning agendas outside Brazil, and it's expected that during the year he will make official visits to countries such as Colombia, Chile, and Italy. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Hill met on Monday with the diplomatic corps accredited in the country to report on the progress of the presidential election process scheduled for July 28th.
I had an extraordinary meeting today with the diplomatic corps accredited in Venezuela, international organizations, ambassadors in charge of business, where we reviewed all the advances in the electoral process between now and the 28th of July 2024, where the Venezuelan people will elect the president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We have held this meeting in the spirit of transmitting and that the ambassadors in charge can transmit directly to their government the reality of what is happening in Venezuela. We have seen through various channels how sometimes the information that gets out is the information generated by news agencies that are fundamentally enemies of Venezuela and that have been used for 25 years against Venezuela.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Hill denounced the attacks by the United States against the country's electoral system in order to defame Venezuelan sovereignty.
I invite the European Union, the United Nations, the Carter Center, the Latin American Electoral Organization and various personalities. I believe that this day is a necessary day that we will be doing daily so that the truth of Venezuela can be heard against the attacks that come from the United States and that are orchestrated to undermine our sovereignty to attack our electoral system, the electoral system, which has demonstrated 25 years 30 elections. We are going to election number 31 impeccable with all the guarantees, elections that we have seen that they are fully audited.
In Ecuador, the increase in homicides during the state of emergency in the country cast doubts on the so-called Phoenix Plan promoted by Daniel Noboa's government. Various organizations point out that the security plan was promoted on the assumption of fighting insecurity, but during the Holy Week holiday, there were 137 murders and multiple kidnappings in spite of the militarization and curfew. In this context, specialists affirm that there are no concrete results, no real figures of the Phoenix Plan, and consider that it is only part of the narrative of Noboa. They also warn that the states of exception, such as the one decreed by the Ecuadorian president, are not the solution to violence, but that other measures are necessary to solve the root of the problem. Let's take a look at some details of the so-called Phoenix Plan. President Daniel Noboa promised to eradicate insecurity in Ecuador in the style of his counterpart in El Salvador, Nayib Bukele. He has deployed the military on the streets and arrested almost 2,000 people. He announced the construction of 2 mega prisons and changed the country's military leadership after state officials were shown to have collaborated with criminal gangs. The president is keeping many of the details of this plan under wraps, which is generating fears among human rights defenders who consider that it does not guarantee the constitutional rights of the population. Former U.S. President Donald Trump posted a $175 million bail on Monday as he appealed his conviction in a civil fraud case in New York. The case, investigated by New York Attorney General Letitia James, accused Trump, his adult children, and his company of inflating assets for financial gain. Trump's lawyers' efforts got his bail amount cut nearly in half by a state appeals court and extended his deadline to 10 days to make the payment. Trump has faced numerous indictments, lawsuits, and countersuits, yet he continues to run as the Republican Party's presidential candidate. Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Palestine, a new Israeli airstrike killed 7 workers of the charity World Central Kitchen on Monday after delivery of food and supplies to North Gaza. The Ministry of Health in Gaza reported that at the time of the attack, the martyrs were traveling in a vehicle on the sea road west of the city of Deir al-Balah During the removal of the bodies, the authorities confirmed the nationality of 3 of the 7 dead, who were of Polish, British and Australian origin. In response to the attack, Hamas movement reaffirmed in a statement that Israel still insists on its policy of systematic assassinations against civilians, humanitarian aid teams and international charities in order to promote terror among humanitarian workers so that they cannot carry out their missions. The United Nations announced the dispatch of a mission to Al-Shifa hospital in the city of Gaza following the withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces from the facilities. The UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric indicated that the organization is awaiting the necessary security guarantees to enter the building that has remained for 2 weeks under siege by the Tel Aviv troops. Dujarric added that the mission's objective is to arrive as soon as possible at the Al-Shifa facility to assess both the state of health of the people and the conditions of the hospital. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 21 patients lost their lives during the siege of the institution, while local media claimed to find dozens of corpses piled up inside the building. In an educational center in Rafah belonging to the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, volunteers have been formed with Gaza's population to provide humanitarian aid. Let's see more details in the following report.
A group of young Gazans volunteered to provide daily lunches to displaced Palestinians in the southern region of the Gaza Strip in Rafah.
I'm a poet and a graduate in social communication. I'm from Jabalia camp. I'm displaced for the Al-Shifa in Rafah city since the 7th day of the war. I'm displaced along with my family. I belong to a volunteer team that offers help and support to our displaced people who are in the gathering places in Rafah. We try to serve with what we can and we will continue to support them despite the difficult situation.
In addition to Palestinian volunteers, the team also includes young Syrians who are willing to collaborate either within an academic institution or in ruined areas.
Our team is made up of young Syrians. We are in the north of Syria and in the countries and areas suffering from conflicts and catastrophes. With the Al-Aqsa flood operation against our people in Gaza, we focus to help our people in the Gaza Strip. We, with the help of God, were the soldiers who have accompanied them in the Gaza Strip. There was a first, second and third phase of our activities where we were in Jan Yunis before moving to Rafah Governorate. Then we continued with phases 4, 5 and 6. And with the help of God, we have been able to offer many programs and many activities like the IFTAR for those who are fasting, like what you are observing here. We have offered other iftars. Each iftar is different. The first iftar was in a place full of debris and destruction in the area of Shabura in Rafah. The second iftar was in our headquarters in Tal al-Sultan, and the third iftar took place in the border areas.
This initiative will allow each family with full freedom to revive moments of peace in the Gaza Strip, where the Palestinian struggle for their identity and sovereignty persists, waiting for the end of the Israeli genocide.
The Colombian government said it will join South Africa's court case against Israel's violations and urge other countries to do likewise. In an official statement issued on Monday, the Colombian government said that in order to cooperate with the lawsuit filed by South Africa against Israel at the International Court of Justice, and to contribute in a tangible way to the defense of the Palestinian cause in the international judicial arena, the national government has decided to intervene in this process, invoking the mechanism provided for in Article 63 of the Statute of the Court. On the other hand, the statement also states that the Colombian government invites other signatory states of the 1948 Convention to do the same, not only as a gesture of solidarity with Palestine in this tragic hour, but also as a rejection of the violations by Israel of this important treaty, which should not go unpunished. The document also highlights that the court recorded the catastrophic living conditions of the Palestinian population in Gaza continue to deteriorate, and noted that because of Israel's actions, residents of Gaza have been deprived of food and other basic necessities. In Israel, demonstrators blocked Highway 4 to protest against compulsory military service. Hundreds of ultra-Orthodox Jews have waved banners saying to jail, not to the army, and we will die rather than be drafted. Police arrested 6 demonstrators and forcibly cleared the road as the Jews refused to leave. The protest took place on the same day that the High Court order went into effect that stops financial support to Jewish seminaries whose students have not applied for army conscription.
The Israeli government wants to recruit US for the Israeli army. That is why it is considered irreligious for US. That's why we prefer to die rather than go to the Israeli army. We are demonstrating against the government, against the High Court. We will not go to the army. We prefer to die and not go to the army.
The Israeli parliament passed a bill giving top ministers the authority to ban the Al Jazeera news channel. The bill, approved by 70 votes to 10, grants the authority to prohibit the transmission of content from foreign channels that are considered hostile, in addition to the closure of their offices in Israel. In this sense, after the approval of the bill, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed that he will take measures to prevent the Qatari media Al Jazeera from broadcasting from Israel, since he assures that it was involved in the Al-Aqsa flood operation last October 7th. The Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned on Tuesday the Israeli airstrikes that destroyed the consular annex of the Iranian embassy in Damascus.
China condemns the attack on the Iranian embassy in Syria. The security of diplomatic institutions cannot be violated, and the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Syria must be respected. The current situation in the Middle East is turbulent, and we oppose any action that leads to an escalation of tensions.
Meanwhile, in Iran, hundreds of people demonstrated in Palestine Square in Tehran to protest against the Israeli attacks on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Citizens protested against the Israeli airstrike on April 1st. Demonstrators waved the Palestinian flag, chanted several slogans, and raised their rejection of the attacks carried out by the Tel Aviv regime against the Palestinian people. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Approximately 27 explosive devices were seized while being transported from Ukraine to Russia via member states of the European Union. According to an official statement issued by the Russian Federal Security Service, officials of the Federal Customs Service dismantled a cross-border smuggling channel for explosives during the search of a vehicle at the Upelinka border crossing point on the Latvian-Russian border. 70 kilograms of high-power plastic industrial explosive, 91 detonators and components of a portable anti-tank rocket launcher round were taken from the vehicle. In Beijing, the governments of China and France agreed to re-establish strategies for more stable bilateral relationships. The conversations were led by Chinese Prime Minister Wang Yi and his French counterpart Stéphane Séjourné. The Chinese minister expressed his wish for Paris to provide a fair and non-discriminatory business environment for the Asian country. Both representatives pledged to promote mutual communications, coordination, exchanges, and cooperation to build a reciprocal relationship of greater stability and strategic vision. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo, at his Mass for Catholic Easter, denounced the critical security situation that affects the country. The cleric assured that the country is sick, unarmed, and defenseless in the face of violence, in particular that exhibited by militias in the north and east of the territory. In this context of violence, the rebel militias have killed 16 people in the area of Irumu only during the preparations for Holy Week. The situation has caused 500,000 people to be forcibly displaced to the capital of North Kivu. The exhibition The Forbidden City and the Versailles Palace opened on Monday in Beijing, China. The exhibition focuses on exchanges between France and China in the 17th and 18th century to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. This exhibition features over 200 works, mainly from the two museums' own collections, and will provide a fresh perspective on a little-known story interweaving science, diplomacy, and trade with the taste of a bygone era, know-how, and artistic creation, and reveal how a symbiotic relationship between China and France heavily influenced art and design in the regions. The exhibition will run from April 1st to June the 30th. Wang Yi, member of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee and Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Stéphane Séjourné, were present at the exhibition, which aims to reaffirm and strengthen the bilateral ties between the two nations. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.